Hello, I'm Jon Keighren. Welcome to Stockport County. We're joined this morning by the Chief Executive of Stockport County, Johnny Vaughan. Johnny, obviously, we're still in the middle of the pandemic, but how are you coping?
Same as everyone else, really, John. I suppose barely leaving the house for the last 8 weeks and homeschooling, DIY haircuts, beginning to wear a little thin, but fortunately, family's in good health, and I'm just hoping that we return to some sort of normality over the coming weeks.
Oh, my DIY haircut, that went very thin years and years ago, so don't worry about that. Hey, look, 6 months in, Johnny, how's it been for you at Stockport County? COVID-19 apart, how has it been?
I mean, firstly, it's been a real pleasure getting to know everyone involved in the football club. I mean, we've been absolutely blown away just to see how much this football club means to the people of Stockport and what an important role it plays in the community, from the fans to the volunteers to the employees, players and the community foundation. There's a real sense of pride in the club, and it's incredible to see and gives us a great foundation which we'll look to continue to build on over the coming years. So 6 months in, I feel we've got a better understanding now of the challenges that lie ahead. As you know, we've already made some great appointments, bringing in Simon Wilson as Director of Football, along with some important new players who will form the backbone of the team going forward. So a good initial sort of entrance, and excited about what lies ahead.
Funny enough, one of the biggest things that caught everyone's attention was that donation to the NHS. And I'll just, if I can, just remind you of a quote from a few years ago now. Brendan Elwood, when he was the chairman, he said something to me about commercial organisations. He said there's no commercial organisation has a right to operate in a community unless it's going to put something back into that community. And that's exactly what you guys seem to have done with that £75,000 donation to the NHS. Tell us what your thinking was behind that.
I think we're all in awe of the sacrifices that the key workers have made and are continuing to make throughout this pandemic. And Mark felt it was a small gesture compared to how much they're sacrificing to serve the community at the moment. So, you know, as you mentioned, as a community club, we need to celebrate and support the community, and in particular in this time, the local healthcare workers and the key workers where we can. So, as you mentioned, there was a donation made at the start of the crisis. We've contributed the proceeds of the April club shop sales, and we'll look to continue to support the initiative throughout next season as well.
Obviously, on the pitch, it still feels as if the season never really ended properly. 39 games, I think, we've played. How do you see it panning out now? Obviously, I've ended the actual regular season. How do you see it all panning out now?
I think the abrupt end to the season, it was frustrating for everyone, wasn't it? I mean, we felt we were genuinely beginning to get some momentum on the pitch, and we were going to have a great chance of getting into the playoffs and actually, you know, going all the way. Obviously, people's health comes well ahead of football, and the right decision was made at the time. But, you know, in terms of where we are now, we've been in constant dialogue with the National League. And in particular, we hope the issue of promotion and relegation can be concluded in a competitive format, and not just simply on a mathematical points per game calculation. If the playoffs do go ahead in some form at some point, you know, we're resolute in our belief, and we've made that very clear to the National League, that we believe that County should be a part of the playoffs. And again, we feel we've got a strong chance to go all the way. But realistically, we're going to have to wait and see what happens in the leagues above us, because I'm pretty sure that will influence the National League's approach to how to wrap up our season as well.
It's ironic, isn't it? We're sitting here still talking about the current season, but really now we should be planning for next season. It's the time of year, really, when you're looking at retained lists and making signings, looking to get your squad together for the new campaign. How much are you able to plan for next season, given that we don't really know if or when it's going to start?
Well, as you say, look, it's very challenging. We've not even got resolution to the end of this season, let alone sort of a line of sight for when the next season's going to start. I mean, COVID-19's turned everything upside down, both economically across all industries, really. And the football industry is no different. And to be honest, I think it'll be hit particularly hard. When you look at it, gate receipts, sponsorship, hospitality, these are critical to clubs' finances, especially in the lower leagues. And since mid-March, you know, all this revenue has fallen off a cliff. There's nothing coming in at the moment. So fortunately, we're in a stronger position than most. But it's going to be a very challenging 12 months ahead for everyone in football and in the wider economy. That said, the vision for the club and what we set out to achieve, it's not changed. Since day one, our ambition is to create a sustainable football club. And I think what this crisis has demonstrated is the fragile nature of football club finances in general. In reality, big injections of short-term cash into football clubs generally cause more harm than good, and lead to spikes. And the short-termism in terms of a view to the approach of how you approach your finances. We've always said we believe in a long-term strategy, investing in facilities, infrastructure, and in particular youth development. This will ensure that it's a sustainable club for years to come. Post COVID-19, we're going to have to make even smarter decisions, investing in areas where we think will make the biggest differences to the football club in both the short and the long term. So we're progressing with existing plans. We're in advanced negotiations on a couple of options for a dedicated training facility, which we hope to wrap up in the coming weeks. We'll also be announcing a new kit partnership over the coming weeks as well. So plenty to do sort of off the field. On the field, we are looking to make some new signings for next season. As you say, it's sort of difficult to plan from a timings perspective. But we believe the transfer market will really open up as teams and clubs are going to have to cut costs to offset the lost revenues with regards to the curtailment of this season and the potential delay of the commencement of next season. So I think there's going to be a lot of players released, and we're closely monitoring, Simon and Jim are closely monitoring a number of these players. So overall, we're very excited about next season. And, to be honest, like every other football fan, we just can't wait to get going when it's safe to do so.
As you say, this is a final question, Johnny, but you talked there, I think fans will be encouraged to hear that the plans haven't been derailed by COVID-19. You are still focused on those goals that you set yourselves. What do you think about that broader football landscape, though? What do you think football's going to look like post-COVID-19?
I mean, it's a great question, and one that's been debated, I'm sure, across the country, but particularly, in the boardroom here. I think there's going to be some major changes over the next 2 to 3 months, and we may well look back at this time as a watershed moment in football. When you actually look at the finances of the majority of teams throughout the EFL and a number of teams in the National League as well, they're living well beyond their means, and it's just never going to be a sustainable industry with the current model. We're hearing that there's fairly advanced talks of a salary cap for Leagues 1 and 2, and this will force clubs to allocate funds and revenues more responsibly. It's hard to predict exactly where we'll end up, but I'm fairly confident there's going to be some major changes, and particularly to the financial regulations of the governing bodies. From our perspective, we feel this is going to benefit football in the long term and reduce the risk of clubs going out of business and just disappearing off the map. One thing we've seen, we touched on before, is how much these football clubs mean to the local communities. And when you can allow clubs such as Bury last year, and there's other clubs that are close this year to go into administration and disappear, the knock-on impact that has on a lot of these towns and small communities is significant, and we've got to make sure that there's regulation in place to avoid that. But with any change comes opportunities, and we feel we're confident that we'll be able to adapt to whatever environment we find ourselves in next season. So we remain very optimistic in terms of what's going to happen over the next 12 months. But it's going to be an interesting couple of months, that's for sure, John.
Before I go, I spent 7 years sitting around that boardroom table, and the weight of that responsibility and the decisions that you take, are you able to enjoy it at this stage, Johnny, or do you feel that pressure as well?
Of course, there's always pressures. There's pressure, in any business you're in generally to succeed. But we've been drawn into the club a lot quicker than maybe some other board members didn't think they would be. And we feel both a collective responsibility for the club, for the town, but we're very ambitious people, and we're confident that we can have a real successful period sort of while we're overseeing the club. And timing wise, okay, buying a football club just sort of 2 months before a global pandemic isn't great, but I'm sure we'll navigate through the difficult times over the next couple of months. And as I touched on before, we're in a good position, better than a lot of teams, in particular in the National League and the lower EFL division. So we think there's going to be some good opportunity over the next few months, and we think we're well positioned to capitalise on that opportunity.
Johnny, thanks so much for your time this morning. Look after yourself and we'll see you soon.
Nice one. Cheers, John. Catch up soon.